What's up, folks? Welcome to Ninoscorner.tv. I got a very special episode for you today. I'm back with Lewes Hermes. Screw Big Government, that's his channel. And Lewes Hermes is a very interesting story where Lewes was actually in the 1990s. You were doing an evaluation on a property, correct? Or you were
Yep. For plumbing.
for plumbing, right? And you came across during your plumbing work doing this evaluation came across tunnels and rooms underground of this house, this huge mansion, which now we put the pieces together and we can say that they connect to many other mansions in the Beverly Hills area. There's a syndicated tunnels there and a massive infrastructure there. And what we'll be talking about today, folks, with Lewes is the Playboy Mansion, which I have visited a few times in my youth and in my heyday. And there's been a lot of stories that I've heard regarding that place, the Playboy Mansion. Never knew if they were true or false. I just heard them. I actually know of stories. I know of people that have been blackmailed there, recorded there, and have been taken for a lot of money. So that being said, Lewes, thank you so much for joining me. This is going to be a killer episode. Thank you.
Great to be here, David. Appreciate you and your work.
I appreciate it, folks. First of all, get your Noble Gold. Get your Noble Gold. Noble Gold Investments market update. Gold is up 48% in a year, doubling NASDAQ and S&P 500 gains. But this isn't just another rally, folks. Global reserves are shifting as investors rush to secure physical gold, creating a massive supply gap. Gold is vanishing from the market, but you still have a chance. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com today and turn your panic into profit, folks. Make a qualified investment, and Noble Gold will add a free 10th, not 10, but 10th ounce gold coin to your order. NobleGoldInvestments.com, NobleGoldInvestments.com. Get on it now. Now let's get to the good stuff. Actually, that was the good stuff. You should get gold. You should get gold. But this, to me, you've heard these things. I've heard these things. I've heard of trap doors and secret doors and stuff in the grotto, and I've heard of all kinds of stuff at the Playboy Mansion and rooms that lead to other rooms, kind of like a meow wolf type of place, right? I don't know if anyone's ever been to meow wolf, but doors or secret entrances that lead to other places, tunnels underground, this underground, that. I've heard about this long time ago, many, many years ago. Lewes, you've experienced this in one home up in Beverly Hills. You wanted to walk us through that first without naming the guy's name. That's on Ninoscorner.tv where we name the guy, but I don't want to do it publicly here on an open platform.
Yep, the property is huge. It's a 40,000 square foot property that I was in the 90s to evaluate. And it was in transition of ownership at the time. So by the time we convinced the guy to take his security team away from us because it was going to cost him more money, my buddy and I got to look at everything. And we ended up finding literally secret passages that went through a library downstairs into tunnels. And some of the things we saw on the property just blew us away. Just
Now,
absolutely blew
this
us
guy
away.
was paranoid, right? He did not want you, he had bodyguards or he had security surrounding you, so you really couldn't do your job thoroughly.
Yeah, so it was weird. This is while I believe the house was in escrow, and his goal was to get us in there so he can drive the price down to find as many problems as possible, which is that standard protocol, honestly. So what was weird about it though is the first day and a half he had his security team literally just crawling all over us and we couldn't work. So I called him directly. I said, "Dude, you want to cost yourself more money, just keep him here. What are you worried about? There's nobody at the residence right now." And he's like, "Yeah, that makes sense." So he called him off. We saw a secret entrance into the back, which just I cannot believe it that existed, and tunnels underneath it that we were in. And then at the end was a door that was heavily locked. We never got through the final door. So, but we do know that there's tunnels that head to Playboy Mansions, Getty's, other places. So it's like
Allegedly, you got to say allegedly here.
I was going to say, so it's likely that the same thing was happening here.
Okay, so you also saw a playhouse for children, right, on his property that was like, I mean,
Yeah,
these megastars, these really rich elitists have, for some reason, a fascination with children. I
They
mean,
do.
if you
Yeah.
look at what is it, Never Ending, or Michael Jackson's Ranch.
Neverland Ranch,
What is it?
which the guy we're talking about happened to purchase, by the way.
Well, you're kidding me.
No, he owns it.
So he went and got that from Michael Jackson. So this makes
He
a lot
went,
more sense now.
doesn't it? It all adds up, doesn't it?
So can you tell my audience what you found on his property that kind of at the
Yeah.
time didn't raise any alarm bells for you, but now they do, correct?
Not for me. I mean, at the time, because I was thinking, how awesome would this be for kids? You know, if they're famous, they don't want them to go outside, and then there's more ramifications that I learned later. But there's an actual miniature house. There's a place that on the property called Fairyland, and there's actual a miniature house that I had to crawl in. There's working porcelain sink and toilet in there, like working miniaturized for children. I was blown away. And there's a carousel just like you would see it, Los Angeles, Santa Monica Pier. You see a horse carousel just like that on the property. I have pictures of it. So it's crazy, and it's so kid centric, right? And then when we went underground, we saw some things that were kid centric too, and it just doesn't add up. And now we know what really goes on with that place, and there's the connections with an ex-president there that we have proof of, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty nasty stuff.
Let me ask you this. When you found the entrance to this elaborate tunneling system that goes under the house, what was the entrance? What did it end up being?
So we went into a library, and it was a beautiful mahogany library, just gorgeous. And just like you'd see in the movies where they had the ladder where you have to climb up to the top and it scrolls around, right? So we're like thinking, this is amazing. Wow, how eccentric is what my buddy and I are thinking at the time. And then I said something like, well, can you imagine if there's a false door or a book that we can pull and a door opens up, joking around, right? Because it was just like the movies. So we're inspecting it, and certain we see a seam between two bookcases. And I asked him to play lookout, and I'm pushing and pulling and doing all this stuff, and it clicked in and then clicked out. It was on a magnetic system, even
Just
back
like the movies.
just like the movies in the 90s. And there's a door behind it. So we went in, we closed the bookcase behind us so nobody would know we're down there. And then that's when we got to inspect what we saw below.
And what did you see below?
Well, we saw a viewing room for now. I guess they're more popular nowadays where they would, if you want to watch movies, they have the leather chairs and the screen and all that. It was gorgeous, but I've never seen one back in the
But
90s.
was it a ramp going down or was it stairs going down?
Stairs that
How
went
many
down.
stairs? How long was the staircase?
Well, it only went down, that part only went down one level. So probably 16, 17 steps, I'm guessing, something like that. And then we saw that room, and then there was inside, though it was really weird. There were cedar shoe shelves that lined the hallway for about 30 to 40 feet. And the stench was so strong we had to cover our mouths, right? At the time we were joking around, what Imelda Marcos must live here. If anybody knows, she was, old Philippines wife of a president. She loved shoes. But what happened is I found out later in my investigations, that's a great way to cover up the scent, the or factors of search dogs back in the day. They're better trained now, but back in the day, that would definitely affect them. So going in, and we saw like a miniature bowling alley and places for toys for
Down
kids.
below the house.
Underneath, all of this was
Underneath
underneath
the
the house,
house, a miniature bowling alley, and it was kid centric.
and totally kid centric. Yeah, all of that was underneath the house.
Underneath the house, kid centric type. That's creepy.
Yeah, it is. Now,
You weren't creeped out then, or were you just kind of thinking? Because I mean, that was not in human consciousness back
Ex
then.
exactly. So it wasn't in consciousness. And so in my thought, I'm like, okay, so the adults are viewing a film underneath. Maybe they'll have the kids, they'll keep them entertained down there. But then there was at the end, which was creepy, there was a door that was completely locked. I believe it was a combination lock. You couldn't get through it. Jiggled the handle, did everything we could. You could not get through that door. So that's where it ended for us. And then later I found out because I knew people that were at the mansion and knew the owner really closely. And she tied a whole bunch of things together, and then I was like, wow, this
That
is
connects all the homes, correct?
crazy, crazy. Well, no, she connected what went on in the house and potentially below the house also, which is
So it's still a mystery where that door connects, but we could assume to more tunnels.
yeah, that's just an assumption at this point.
Okay. Let's now segue now that people know your background and understand that you've actually seen this firsthand.
Hmm.
Let's talk about the Playboy Mansion, which, I've seen firsthand. Now, I saw it in a different kind of way, but I mean, I was not there looking for tunnels, right?
Yeah,
Other way,
well,
maybe, but
different tunnel.
yeah. But uh, I would have never, I just thought Hugh Hefner, my image of Hugh Hefner, my impression of Hugh Hefner was just a self-made millionaire, multi-millionaire that just struck gold making a magazine and had it made. And I never would have thought, back then, like maybe he could be part of a larger operation. I never thought the Playboy Mansion was a part of an operation because that wasn't in human consciousness back then. But
That's
now
right.
looking back, I'm like, oh, it all makes sense. I had friends that were blackmailed there.
That's right.
One of them was in a boy band, a very, very the most famous boy band. I won't say which one it is, but I was
Well, you'll sing the song for us. No.
maybe I will. Hey, but no, but yeah, I just remember that he was blackmailed there. He was married, and some things happened to him. And I happen to also know the person that blackmailed him, which was crazy. That being said, let's get into this. So Hugh Hefner, gotta ask the question, part of a three-letter agency operation at that Playboy Mansion. And now with everything coming out, I just don't see how it's not even it's completely possible that he was.
I'll lay out a timeline for you, and I'll share my screen, and I think it's conclusive that that's the truth. And this dude did not start with $8,000 like the story is told and built this empire. I'm sorry.
I watched the documentary and I thought, wow, what a self-made millionaire, what an incredible story.
Right. Yeah, well, but didn't we think this that Bill Gates actually started in his garage and Mark Zuckerberg
Bezos.
started, and it's all BS. They build these stories for us, right? And the stories are all start with nothing and create something amazing, right? So that's part of the mass MK Ultra. In my opinion, that's how they get us into their zeitgeist of thinking, and we're like, oh wow, these are people to follow. Like I used to love reading all about the Ford and Carnegie and so on and so forth. I don't know what to believe now.
No, I don't either. And I think another one that we should be looking at right now, and in my opinion, is Elon Musk. Because we
Yeah,
know I've had 𝗓𝗏𝗏 on my show many times saying that he was funded by other means and he's just a poster boy for this, and so obviously he's playing ball with Trump right now, but there's a lot going on with Elon that I'm like, can you trust him? Can you not? That is yet to be determined in my mind. But go ahead and share the screen,
sure.
Lewis, and
I want to ask you one question though. Would you trust him if you knew he was 2.0?
no.
You think it could be 2.0 from the bad guys?
I think Trump has something on him.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't just play with anybody. Trump has something on him, and he's like a cat with his paw on the tail of the mouse.
Exactly. And you know what? I can tell you what, we'll have this discussion on another show.
Let's do this on the Ninoscorner.tv if we want to get into it deep. You
Yeah.
want to?
I can tell you that that's rampant across the Trump administration, which is a good thing.
Lindsey Graham being one of them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And
So
the
can we
others.
talk about that on the back channel?
Yeah, yeah, we'll do it.
Okay. So folks, go to Ninoscorner.tv for the on the back channel. We'll be talking about that and more there. But here, go ahead, share the screen if you want to. Let's kick this off because I'm excited about this. Is the Playboy Mansion even operational right now, or is it? I mean, who's running it?
Yeah, his next door neighbor purchased it from him. I don't know if they're doing anything with it as of since his passing.
Wow.
So, and I think it's interesting that the neighbor purchased. Now, I couldn't find any dirt on the neighbor so far, to be honest with you. So who knows? Don't know what's going on with that guy.
Right. But why would you purchase it? I mean, you must want you must really want that property or what is in that property.
Yeah, supposedly he's going to expand it, and it's going to be a playground of three properties together that he's going to put together. But we'll see what happens with it.
Okay. Are you able to share the screen?
Yeah, let's do that. Now, the first thing that we're going to see, the unnamed substance,
And we have to
right?
call it a substance on Fluff Tube, folks.
Right. And I believe I can link
Yep.
this all together. So let's just can we say the name of the three-letter agency, or we just want to call them
Let's just
three-letter
call them
agents?
three-letter agencies just to say
Okay.
clean on here. We
So
know
in
what
in
we're
a
talking about.
2009 lawsuit, Laurel Aston, which was a three-letter agency whistleblower, she said, quote, Hefner is a three-letter agency programmer, three-letter agency sex slave handler, and pimp. This is her quote.
Wow.
She says Hefner was also part of running an M super assassins and ops. That was her quote, and she was a three-letter agency whistleblower. So that adds context to what I'm going to show you coming here in a moment. So what you see on your screen is a substance, and it's a chemical formulated in, and I'm going to give you timelines because David, when you hear the timelines, it's going to blow you away. So this is 1937 is when they actually created what we know now as the white rabbit,
Okay.
right? In scientific terms, it's a chemical it's produced in the body when an adrenaline oxidizes. So, and the way I won't go too much into it, but they use victims, they terrorize them, so on and so forth, and then they stick them in the back of the neck to get this stuff out of the spinal column. On this channel, I don't want to go too deep into it. So
You
that
can
was
go much deeper with names and all that on .tv, correct?
right, exactly. So in that's in 1937. Now, just 5 years past this, the formation of the OSS, right, Office of Strategic Services, and that's going to come into play here. That was in 1942, and that was an executive order by Franklin Roosevelt, right? So, and he said they were established to coordinate intelligence and covert operations during World War II. What's not said, and this is very important, and here's the connection, they were very well known for experimenting with drugs and substances for interrogation purposes and human enhancements, similar to what they were doing in Nazi Germany. So you can imagine they were using those substances that we just showed to do human enhancements. The next up, then they only lasted a few years. So they were disbanded in 1945 by Truman, and in 47, he created this three-letter agency, right? And it's very important. And here's why, because look at this. That's 1947. In 1949, Hugh Hefner, this is proof, got a psychological degree from the University of Illinois. And it says right there, this is his picture from their yearbook. It says Division of Special Services Psychology.
Wow.
That
That's a
alone,
lot to me right there.
that's the main connection. That just gave me the God bumps right here. That's the connection. And these are the type of people that they would recruit, right? We know this. There's a whole bunch of universities that I'm not going to name here that are recruiting grounds for this three-letter agency. So 47, they were formed. 49, I believe they targeted Hefner because he was already in the Division of Special Services Psychology right there on his yearbook, right? Now, shortly after that, which is going to be interesting, in 1951, Alice in Wonderland was filmed, right? And what did they do? They introduced to us the White Rabbit. Let's read this all connects, right? Then in
And
1953,
it's a little girl following the right white
it's
rabbit.
just exactly, it's a little girl
Oh,
following the White Rabbit. And the hallucinations and everything else that we know goes along with that.
right. Wow.
Crazy, right?
It's all in the open.
It's all there. They're telling us everything in front. But the timeline is what blew me away when I started to really dig into this stuff, right? So then what happened next? Huh, go figure.
Right.
2 years later, and was launched, right? The same year, and this is where it gets dirty. The same year, Hef launched Playboy magazine. Now think about this. Just
So
a
you
couple.
don't think any of this was organic?
I don't know, not at all.
So
Did
so
I?
now you're showing proof that you believe this was all manufactured. He was just a poster boy, like the Elon Musk of back then.
I believe absolutely, just like Bill Gates, just like all of them, he was completely groomed and put into this position in order to compromise famous people and people of influence. That's what I believe is done. He was way pre the EP guy. I don't know if we could say the name
Yeah.
here. Way pre him for sure. And he was a master at it. And even more of a master, he got them to come to him because of Playboy Mansion, which
Well,
I'm
who
going to
would
show.
not want to, right? Everyone wanted to be there.
Yeah, it was
You can
cool. Everybody's
tell.
having a good time and parties or whatever you're into. It was the it place to be, and I'm going to show you how he got there though. So this is 1953 is was same year M launched. He launched his first Playboy magazine with Marilyn Monroe on the cover. Interesting, right? You think the substance may come into play? Check
Mm,
this out. With inside this magazine, so that's her on the cover. With inside this magazine, look what they introduce.
damn. And this is like the mascot for Playboy,
There you go.
the white rabbit.
There's the white rabbit. To me, the connections are no coincidence whatsoever. Now, the colors of the substance that we know that they play with all the time, this substance here is pink and red, and that will come in to play. So the Playboys always are black and white or pink and red. You're going to see pink and red all throughout, black and white. They went to blues for a while and then they X that out, right? So the black and white, as we know, is the Masonic tilt, and the pink and red is what this on your screen right here, this substance is known as. So then this is where it really gets juicy. From 53 to 71, what Hefner did is he built his brand, he built his empire with the help of the three-letter agency, in my opinion, right? So he created all these relationships. So this is here him. So he opened his first uh, nightclub, right, in the 60s, and then he had in the 60s and 70s he had all these clubs that were opening over and over and over and over. Look at that. There's Sinatra right there. Sammy Davis Jr. right there. And look at and John Lennon coming out of a Playboy club right
Yeah.
there. Right? This
Playboy
is
was huge just up to what, 10 years ago, maybe?
yeah, it was astronomical. He built all this on $8,000.
Yeah.
It's just ludicrous. It was the busiest nightclub in the world. There's a club that he had in Chicago that had 132,000 customers in 3 months,
Wow.
right? And listen, back then, look at the entertainers: Bob Hope, Ray Charles, Steve Allen, Anne Margaret, Dizzy Gillespie. I mean, it goes on and on and on. He had Playboy clubs in New York, in Manila, London, Tokyo, the Bahamas. He created such a mystique. I believe this was on purpose before purchasing the Playboy Mansion in 71, because this was the goal, is to build up this mystique of who this guy was and what he could do, and then draw them all here. So he purchased the Playboy Mansion in 71, and you can talk more to this than
Yeah.
I can. And he had underground tunnels there, which I'm going to show. He also, of
That
course,
whole backyard, yeah, there it is.
he built the grotto,
Yep.
right?
A lot of dirty stuff happens in there, man. I walked in there and I walked out, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm going to show you something that he had in the grotto that nobody knows, I think. Now, you want to see how dirty this guy is? In 1975, he he bought pictures of a 10-year-old naked Brooke Shields, and in 1976 he put those in his magazine. He
Did they
actually
get published?
he published these photos.
She's 10 years old.
10 years old in 75. Her mom, because her mom was just dirty as hell, her mom had her take these pictures with a photographer. And in 75 and 76, Hefner purchased these pictures and published them. How did he get away with this?
Was this like normal back then? I'm just very
It's not.
confused
It
right now.
wasn't.
Today, this would never fly.
They put it under the guise of art. It's
I
absolutely
mean, but
disgusting.
did men not think that? I mean, I know, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding this. So this was the 70s. So did men not have that?
Well, okay, so I grew up in the 70s. In fact, it was the free will kind of post hippie generation of the free sex, and nudity was a great thing. In fact, even I'll be honest with you, even I don't even know if I've ever told this public. My wife's shaking her head over here, like, no, you're not going to tell this, but I'm going to tell this. It, Even back then, when I was a little kid, right? I knew and saw there was nude beaches all over the place in Los Angeles, right? As a kid, you can freely go to the nude beaches, no problem. So that was there was a normalcy about it in the 70s. Now,
Yeah.
we can go in deeper. That three-letter agency we keep talking about, we could do a whole separate show where I believe they created this whole revolution in order to take down the United States from the inside out. And it was all on purpose. So, and
Elvis
that
Presley knew about this, right? He was kind of wasn't he very much voiced against this stuff and it was driving him crazy from what I've heard.
yeah, now it's weird. I hear that, but yet he dated a 14-year-old.
Correct. And so
So
did
you know
Jerry
what
Lee
I mean?
Lewis.
So it's who knows? Who
Jerry Lee
knows?
Lewis dated, married his 13-year-old cousin.
Yeah, who did?
Jerry Lee Lewis, right?
Oh, right,
The
right.
fire
That's
guy.
that's right. Absolutely.
I mean, so this is kind of commonplace back then. I mean, now that I'm looking at this, I mean, there's Elvis Presley, a 14-year-old. I mean, back then, I guess it wasn't looked down upon. I
Well,
mean, I'm assuming here.
it was it would definitely look down upon for the age group, but for some reason, like 14 to 16 with an 18 or a 20-year-old was normal back then. I'm not quite sure why. But the nudity was looked at as art, and I think that was the psychological manipulation from the three-letter agency to get us to accept something that's just completely unacceptable. And now we're waking back up to it. But he actually published these photos. I am not going to show the photos. That's why his picture is in front of it, right there. And it's the worst. It's the worst. So that was in 76. So in 77, uh, tunnels were being built from the mansion to the home of Jack Nicholas Warren Beatty, right?
Connecting them.
Yes, in fact, I can show you. You can see right here on the down look, you can actually see the tunnels right there underground on this picture. You can see them being built.
I do see. Holy cow! So there they are building them.
So, or this could have been a post excavation. I don't know later on, but it's right
Could
there.
that
You
not
can,
be sewage? I mean, let's try to look at both. I mean,
yeah,
what
it
you're.
could be, but look how wide it is. And by the way, I worked
Well, right
in
there to the left of the screen, right there where that tall tree is, at
that's
least
the
from my observation and looking at it, there looks like there's something going underground right there, like a
right, and
staircase.
that's the grotto there. And yeah, it could be sewage, except for one thing. I That's the industry I worked in, Nino, and you don't make a 90-degree sharp turn if you're running
Mm.
if you're running 4-inch or more sewage pipes. You generally do a 45-degree turn. But regardless, it shows over to the left, which we're pointing out. Definitely, it's underground. All that stuff is underground, and I can show it. I can show it right here too. So in the mansion. These pictures were taken in the basement. These are actually the blueprints of a lot of the tunnels. And here's the actual blueprints here, right? And this shows
Wow.
the schematic of the tunnel.
Wow. Where did you get these? Are these on the internet?
Yeah, they are. I searched and searched. One of these, which is really cool, I gotta find it, actually shows. Here it is. This one here actually shows here, right here. It says the Warren Beatty residence, and this one is the Hefner residence. So this is actual blueprint proof, right, of going to the Warren Beatty residence. And there's evidence that also says they went to Jack Nicholson's house, Kirk Douglas, James Caan, and
Allegedly, we can't say evident. Okay, so we don't no proof, no validation.
right. And it's allegedly they've, or likely, let's say, that it went to the Getty Museum as well.
Oh my Lord. I had no idea you were going to be showing me these blueprints.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And this is
Painful.
actually in those tunnels, the excavation underneath the tunnels, right? Now, when you go inside of the house, this is what a lot of people are learning now from the Playboys. Now, the Playboys talked while Hefner was alive. They talked really great about him, if you remember.
Yeah, they loved him.
All,
They all loved him.
almost within a month of his death, they said he did this, he was this, he was this. So they were clearly afraid of him, right? And now the story, I mean, there's so many stories I read over the last week that blow you away of the things that they did and the way they were controlled and uh, the weird sex that he would do and
I'll say this. I met him and I had a glass of wine with him and a cigar. And I will say that he just seemed, but he was very old at that time. So I just chalked it up to him being very old. He's
right.
just very jaded and numbed and just kind of he just looked fractured and just kind of broken, if you want my opinion. Just kind of like he's seen it all. And I don't know. I just thought in my mind that he just knew his time was coming, like he was getting old, he was getting ready to pass. And that's how I kind of that was my
Yeah.
perspective on him. But
Yeah, well, we I think we know now that he was controlled. He was a piece, a chess piece in this puzzle of this great control operation that we know of. And it was all about compromise. So inside the mansion, and there's things like this where you can look into a pool when people are swimming. Check this out. Many people don't know this about. You talked about the grotto. There's actually a door right above the grotto, and this is a snapshot that I got of looking down when the secret door opens, looks right down in the grotto, and that's where they take pictures and video from above.
wow.
All this is actually from the mansion, from the grotto right there
So this
above.
is like the biggest honeypot operation there could have ever been up until this time.
100%, 100%. There was cameras. Now post his death, the Playboys have come out and said there was cameras everywhere. There was one room that they used to drive people in for sex constantly, and they said there was multiple cameras in the walls, the ceilings, behind mirrors, all over the place. Specifically, now at the time they were naive. The girls were thinking that he's just a creepo because they caught him watching these films sometimes, right?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. This is what they said. Thank you. So this is, although he's dead, so I guess we don't really have to say allegedly,
I
do
mean,
we?
yeah, just to
But
stay.
you want to be careful.
Yeah.
So on FluffTube. So it's interesting. So here's the dude, right? Now,
That's about when I met him, man.
allegedly, many girls were drugged. They were lured into do things with influential men in order to get them in situations where they can be recorded,
Hey,
right?
can I just say one thing?
Sure.
I wouldn't go as far to say they were lured, because, and I'll say this, because when I was there, every girl there wanted to be around him. They were clawing their way to be around this guy. I mean, he wouldn't allow them upstairs, some of them. I mean, it was like I remember that. So I know he's passed and everything, but I am speaking on behalf of what I saw. And the women all wanted to be around him. I don't know if they just wanted a photo shoot or what they wanted, or hopefully they'll make it big. But you couldn't. They weren't lured into anything. They were clawing their way to be around this guy, clawing.
Well, that actually makes sense with the next part that I have because what many of them has said is they were open about it after his death. They said that they were their goal was to get close to him because then they could find a rich husband to support them. That was a lot of them actually said that on record that that was their goal is to find a wealthy husband. Um, but if they stepped out of line, they said they were definitely threatened. So I don't know what that goes to, right? And they were in certain compromising positions with other men that they may not have wanted to be with, but that was part of the negotiation for them to stay in the house.
Okay, makes sense, but they really shouldn't have been there anyway. If you want
No,
my,
it was there. All of them. Okay, now this isn't glad you said this. So this isn't a normal human trafficking operation where they were captured and brought in, right? And that's why I used the lure. So they
right.
they they were lured in there because of their own selfish needs and what they wanted to get out of it, right? And then they got themselves into situations
So
that
do we really call them
I can you be a
victims? I
victim when you
mean,
walked into it? I
this
don't
is a
know,
big gray area, man.
It is. I agree. I
You
agree.
know,
I think they were definitely complicit, for sure. But but they're paid off too, as we know. That's the way it works.
yeah. I
So
know
they're
that in the mansion they had women walking around naked with paint on their body that looked like clothes, but it was just paint.
yeah, yep.
And and they were hired from, different places here and there. But yeah, but I mean, still free will comes into play. You don't have to be there. You didn't have to go there.
No, that's exactly right. They didn't have to go there. Now, in regards to the substance, it was all about reds and pinks, as you can see for Hefner. And there he is with his little devil horn. So I mean, the summary for me, Nino, is he virtually invited everybody there. Everybody of substance got an invite, right? And some, as you could probably attest to, some of his parties were actually PG. He had movie nights and things like that, and some were R, and then some were just massive, massive orgies. And I think that was probably on purpose because he can lure people in and then start to subject them to more, and therefore you can get all the tapes on them.
Like I said, I know people that have been blackmailed there, not by him, but by others, which was crazy to me. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, so it wasn't by Hugh himself, it was by other individuals that had either video set up or access to his film. I don't know how they did it, but I could imagine that a lot of people prospered from this place because I know of a person that did.
Yeah, I'm wondering because you know how these guys are pretty smart, how he was always one or two steps away from it. So somebody else would do the dirty work in regards to the blackmail. But
I mean,
who
it was a
knows?
place that a lot of powerful men went, and a lot of them were married. No one asked questions. It was just a men's playground, man. I mean,
Yeah,
it is what it is, and I know that for a fact. I mean, I was a young kid, I was just having fun, but I knew I had that weird intuition that when I went into the grotto and I was like, I got the creeps. I was more in the back and just hanging out in the yard and doing stuff like that. They had tents set up and movies playing inside the tents. And
hmm
it was just a fun time. I was just like, wow, I'm the luckiest guy alive. I'm at the Playboy Mansion. I thought I hit the lottery.
Yeah, of
You know what I
course.
mean? And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, that was obviously also the ending of my career. That's when I started doing this, but that's when I was like, oh well, I don't need to be heavyweight champ to get what I want. But no, it was definitely a fun time. Do I regret it? No, I don't. It was a blast, man. But Lewes, I appreciate you coming on. Can we go to ninoscorner.tv and start naming some of these individuals and talk about it further?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, folks. Lewes Herms, screw big government. Where do they find you, Lewes?
It's actually Screw Big Gov,
Big Gov. Okay,
and
well,
it's screwbiggov.com, and everything I do, all the channels, interviews, they all end up there, so you can find me on Rumble and X from going to that.
thank you, Lewes, so much. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed this. Like and share it. And is it proper to say we can share this like herpes, folks?
Exactly. Yeah. This is Well, there was a lot of chlamydia from what I heard at the Hefner Mansion, so you're not far off. Wow.
All right, folks, we're out of here. Later.